I've been a long-haul truck driver for almost 10 years. In that time, I've seen a lot. Strange lights over empty highways, people walking along the roadside in the middle of the night, and drivers who fell asleep at 90 miles an hour. But what happened last winter is something I still can't get out of my head. It was February. I was driving through a long forest section of the highway where there are no gas stations or towns for dozens of miles. It was around 1 in the morning. The temperature was down to about 30 below. Snowflakes were tapping against the windshield, and my headlights caught nothing but frozen trees. After about 40 minutes, I saw him. At first, he was just a dark silhouette on the side of the road. He was standing perfectly still, facing me, though I couldn't make out his features. As I drove past him, he took a single step toward the highway, like he was going to walk out into the road. But he didn't make it. The truck shot past, and a second later he disappeared back into the darkness. I figured he was just a lost traveler who'd had some bad luck. Maybe his car broke down. Maybe he got lost. I would have stopped if there was even the slightest sign of life nearby, but there was nothing around except the forest and snowfall. About half an hour later, I saw him again. Same silhouette, same pose, same slight tilt of the head, like he was staring right at me. And again, one step toward the road, too sharp to be accidental. For a second, I thought he was smiling, but maybe it was just the shadows from my headlights. Now I was uneasy. Even if he'd been walking, he couldn't have gotten ahead of my truck and appeared there again. The distance between the two sightings was far too great. I turned on the radio, hoping to distract myself, but all I got was static. The snow thickened, the road grew slick, and I slowed down. It didn't help. 20 minutes later, he showed up a third time. This time, he stood closer to the road. He wore an old winter coat, covered in snow. His arms hung at his sides, but his fingers twitched slightly like he was freezing, or trying to communicate something without speaking. I noticed there were no footprints around him. Nothing. The snow was fresh, and any movement would have left tracks, but the ground around him was perfectly smooth. I turned off my headlights for a second, and when I switched them back on, he was already 2 meters from the lane, right in front of me. I jerked the wheel, the truck skidded, and I almost went off the road. When the truck finally stopped, I sat there for several minutes, breathing hard. The wipers scraped at the glass, but I couldn't force myself to look outside. When I finally did, the figure was gone. I didn't get out. I just straightened the truck and kept driving, constantly checking my mirrors. I thought it was over. But around 4 in the morning, I saw him again. This time, in the rearview mirror. He stood in the middle of the road, right where I almost crashed, staring at me. And even though I was driving away from him, it felt like the distance wasn't changing. Like he was closer than the mirror showed. Like he was still right behind me. Then the radio switched on by itself, and through the static, I heard a low, creaking voice. "You passed me." 3 times. I yanked out the radio cable, and it went silent. My heart was pounding so hard, I could barely hear the engine. I drove the rest of my shift without blinking, terrified I would see him again. When I finally reached the depot and got out, I saw the fingerprints on the passenger side door. 5 long marks, as if someone had been holding onto the side during the drive. But on that side of the road, where he'd been standing, there wasn't a path or a ditch or anywhere a person could hide. Sometimes I think it was just a hallucination from exhaustion. Sometimes I think it was a man in real trouble who just wanted to stop me. But what scares me most is that a week later, on a completely different highway, I saw a silhouette up ahead, standing still, head slightly tilted, like he was waiting for me to pass. And as my truck approached, he took the same step forward. The same quick, familiar one. And now, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to outrun him. This story happened 3 years ago, and I still can't think about that evening without feeling uneasy. I live near a small pine forest, and often go there to clear my head after work. Usually I take the same route, but that day, I decided to walk deeper, just because the sky was clear and the air smelled strongly of resin after a recent rain. The farther I went, the quieter it became. There were no footprints on the trail, no birds. After about 20 minutes, I noticed something bright between the trees, a piece of fabric. As I came closer, I realized it was an old tent, faded from years in the sun. It stood crooked, one of the stakes ripped out, and the fabric torn in places, as if someone tried to force their way in. I thought someone must have abandoned it a long time ago, until I heard a faint metallic clink inside. A cold chill went down my spine, but curiosity won. I pulled the flap aside. Inside it smelled of dampness and something else. Something human, like old clothing. And then I saw it, right across from the entrance, hanging on a string stretched between two rusty hooks. There was a photograph. It was pinned with an old metal clip. The photograph was of me, and it had clearly been taken recently. I recognized the jacket I'd only been wearing for a week. The background was the bus stop near my house. My body froze. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at my own face, slightly blurred by the camera flash. I had the awful feeling that if I turned around, I'd see whoever took it watching me. But behind me was only emptiness. I stepped out of the tent and scanned the trees. The forest around me was completely still, deadly quiet. And that silence scared me more than anything. I felt like someone was watching from between the trunks, but was careful enough not to be seen. I tried to take a picture of the tent, to show the police later maybe. When my phone camera focused, I noticed something on the screen far in the background. A silhouette standing between the trees. Still, completely motionless. I jerked my phone down and looked with my own eyes. There was nothing there. I don't remember how I started leaving, walking fast or slow, but soon I was almost running. The whole way, I felt like someone was matching my pace exactly behind me, footstep for footstep. I didn't dare turn around. When I finally reached the familiar trail, I felt relief for only a second. Right before I heard something behind me. A quiet sound, like someone crouching down into the grass. I didn't look back. I just kept walking until I left the forest entirely. When I got home, I checked every window, every lock. I barely slept that night. The next day, I returned with 2 friends. The tent was gone. No string, no clip, nothing. The ground looked completely untouched, as if nothing had ever been there, as if it all happened only in my mind. If not for one thing, the photograph. Yes, I took it. I don't know why. Maybe to convince myself it all really happened. It's still in a box buried deep in my closet. I showed it to friends, tried to figure out who could have taken it, but nobody recognized the style, the quality, anything. The back of the picture is blank, but a few months ago, something strange happened again. I came home late one night and found a new photo slipped under my door. It was a picture of my kitchen, taken at night. I was in it, sleeping in the chair, and the window behind me was slightly open. I fixed that lock a long time ago, and I always close it before bed. And still, sometimes, especially when the room is quiet, I think I hear that faint metallic sound again, like someone carefully clipping another photograph onto a line. Somewhere very close. And maybe he isn't finished yet.